In this video, we are now going to be introduced to a new kind of verb that we are encountering starting in the chapters around the 30s, particularly 36, there's a bunch of them. And these are verbs that are known as deponents. As per usual, there'll be embedded items for watching. Make sure that you obviously take note of them. Now, a deponent verb is a verb, quite simply, that always looks passive, but translates actively. Now let's take a look at what I have over here. I've taken the non-deponent verb, ago, agere, egi, actus, to drive, and I've given the third person singular passive forms. Agetur, agebatur, agetur, actus est, actus erat, actus erit. And one of those forms, when I look at them, I know that they are passive. The reason being, the form. Up here above the line of green tenses, I see aristur, norminiantur. And below, I see the periphrastic forms that we are all familiar with. Deponent verbs always look like these. Always, always, always. But when we translate them, we'll translate them actively. So just to pick one of these, let's go with agitur. He, she, or it is driven. If this were a deponent verb, we would say he, she, or it drives. It is deponent. When we look at it, see a passive form, but you translate it actively. Now, when we look at deponent principal parts, they are going to look different. And here is a list of them that you can find in the module as a document that you can keep, print out, whatever you wish. But these are some of the most common deponent principal parts. Now, first thing you will note, conor, conari, conatus sum, miror, mirari, miratus sum, moror, morari, miratus sum, that deponent verbs have three principal parts. And let's understand why. Before we get continuing on, your first word is deponent. It's written right up there, D-E-P-O-N-E-N-T. That's it, without the S. Deponent, first word that you put in. Now let's take a verb that is not deponent, the verb amo. So there it is, amo, amare, amawi, amatus, aum. Now, if it were deponent, each one of these principal parts would have to look passive. That's an active form, that's an active form, that's an active form. And so we would have to turn them passive and think about what it would look like. This is your first person singular, active indicative. If we were to turn it into passive, it'd be amor, with an R ending. And look at every single first principal part. Conor, miror, moror, werior, labor, secor, locor, proficiscor, and so forth and so on. Then you remember that for the second principal part, it's the present active infinitive. Remember that long A-R-E turns into long A-R-I. Long E-R-E turns into long E-R-I. Short E-R-E turns into a long I. And then long I-R-E turns into a long I-R-I. And so imare, or amare, would turn into amari. So when we look at each one of these, we will automatically know what conjugation they are by still looking at the second principal part. Ari, first. Ari, first. Ari, first. Eri, second. And you even see the E-O. Short E-R-E turns into a long I. Third. 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 I-O. Do you see? Gradior. And the words that are in parentheses are merely the verb that is previous to it with a prefix on the front. So C-O-N, C-O-L because of assimilation, sequor versus prosequor, and so forth and so on. Gradior, gradi, gressus means to go. Progradior, to progress. Ingradior, to ingress, go in. Agradior, to go out. Regradior, to go back, and so forth and so on. The third principal part, remember, is the first person, singular, perfect active indicative, and so therefore, it would look, if it's amawi over here, remember, the perfect passive is going to be the periphrastic, and so it would be amatus sum for the first person. Now, once you've written this, is there any need to write down the perfect passive participle? No, because it is a part of the third principal part, and that's why deponents only have three. Because if we were to add the fourth, it would be conor, conari, conatus sum, comma, conatus. There's no need for conatus again, the perfect passive participle, the fourth principal part. It is merely a part of the third principal part. Your second word in this short video is locor, L-O-Q-U-O-R. Now, there are two main things you've got to know for deponents. One, You've just got to know that the verb is deponent. That's it. So essentially, you have to memorize the deponents. The luck of it is that they're not that many necessarily, but they appear all the time. And again, this principal part sheet helps you with some of the most common. So I've given you 10 in group 1, 10 more in group 2, and that will really cover probably about 80 to 85% of all deponents you see on a consistent basis, but you will see them on a consistent basis. Now, to give you an example, if I were to give you a verb, let's say that you have never seen before, and let's go with, here we are. I'm trying to think of a good one as an example, but I'm blanking. But at any rate, let's go with this. If I were to show you hortator, you will be able to recognize present stem, present vowel, present ending, but you don't know whether it says he is verbed passively, not a deponent, or whether it is he is verbing, he does it himself, unless you know whether it's a deponent. And look down here. Hortor, hortari, hortata sum. It's a deponent verb that means encourage. And as such, I know that when I translate it, it will translate as he encourages. He is encouraging. He does encourage. Now, we've seen these so far in reading the stories. If we were to look, let's say, quickly at chapter 36, they are actually all over the place, especially in the second half of the story. In that, you can find them in the first half of the story as well, but just to highlight them all, or not all of them, but some, here is a deponent verb. You have plenty of others that obviously we can find as well. And let me go ahead and get rid of this. And to find some more of them, you have here secuti sunt. That's a deponent verb. You have consecuti sunt. That's a deponent verb. I didn't mean to scratch out the conatus est. That's a deponent verb. And so in each one of those instances, you just have to know that they are deponent. Such that normally, conatus est, perfect, passive in its form, he was verbed, but that's not how you translate it. You translate it, he tried. Not he was tried, but he tried. Likewise, proficiscator, normally would say he, she, or it will be verbed. It's future. But because it's a deponent, you say he will verb, not will be verbed. And so you will see them all over the place, much like we have seen them so far in some of the chapters that we have read. Now, likewise, compare that then to vulneratus est. Vulneratus est looks exactly like conatus est, but you translate this one passively because it's not deponent, and you translate that one actively because it is. Deponent verbs look passive, translates actively. Now, the very last business, trying to keep this video somewhat short, is that we're going to take a deponent verb over here on the left-hand side, and we're going to get the forms. Now, deponent verbs, even though they look weird in their principal parts, look at the verb that means to follow, sequor, sequi, secutasum, they form the exact same way of every other verb that we've ever encountered. So up here, present stem, present vowel, present ending, it will be the exact same formulation of present stem, present vowel, present ending for sequor. So you take the present stem, which is everything except for that long I. It would be everything except for the ari, everything except for the eri, everything except for the long I, everything except for the iri, just like the present stem is everything before the normal infinitive form. So take S-E-Q-U. It's a third conjugation, same vowel you would expect, tour for third singular. Here it would be S-E-Q-U, E-B-A, tour, just like agebator, sequebator. Here it would be S-E-Q-U, long E for the third future, and then here, again, take the perfect passive-looking participle for the deponent, secutus. Now think about it. If octus by itself, not paired up with form the verb to be, would be having been driven, the deponent verb translates as a participle, perfect passive, having driven. So having been driven, Here, having followed. And then we have it secutus again, just like we have octus, 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 and then pair it up with the present and the imperfect and the future of the verb to be to create the whole periphrastic. Nevertheless, he is driven, he follows. He not is followed, because it's deponent, you translate it actively. He was driven, not he was followed, but he was following, he was doing it. He will be driven, he will follow. He was driven, has been driven, he followed, he did follow, he has followed, but he did it. He had been driven, he had followed. It's deponent, looks passive, translates actively. He will have been driven, he will have been driven, he will have followed. And so, as you can see, it looks exactly like a normal passive verb, but you just got to be able to know, aha, I remember, that one's deponent. And what does that mean? Looks passive, translates actively. Looks the same, all three of the periphrastics form the exact same way, including these form the exact same way. It's just that you have to know that it is deponent. Your last word is periphrastic. Spell it correctly, please. P-E-R-I-P-H-R-A-S-T-I-C. Periphrastics. Looks passive, translates actively, deponent verbs. Thanks for watching.